Hello, welcome to Game Theory. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. Today, we're going to break down Cade Cunningham's debut against the Miami Heat for the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons lost this game by 103 to 102 in a really tight, contested game where the Pistons came back from a double-digit deficit in the third and fourth quarters and really made this a fun game, largely because of the ridiculous performance of Cade Cunningham. Again, 30 points, 9 assists in this game. He was absolutely tremendous. We're going to talk today about why Cade Cunningham, so far, at least through one game, looks like a real dude in the NBA, which is ultimately the biggest question that the Pistons have to answer this season. Is Cade Cunningham legitimately a franchise player, or is he a number 2 or a number 3 option? Something like that. I'm of the opinion that he is very likely to be a franchise player that is a number 1 option. And then we're also going to discuss some of the ways that maybe the Pistons are making life a little bit harder for him. Let's go with. So let's jump into the tape. Let's talk a little bit about what we saw from Cade Cunningham last night. We'll start here. 9 minutes. These first couple of clips, not awesome in my opinion, but as you'll see, he quickly gets going in this first half. And once he did, it was just a absolute ridiculous performance from Cade Cunningham. So let's start here. 9 minutes left. First quarter. To me, that first mid-range shot there, and we'll break it down here momentarily. He ends up getting this ball back for a 3, cans it because of an offensive rebound. The Pistons did pretty well on the offensive glass last night. But for me personally, and we will see this later on, this is a bit of a settle in the mid-range for Cunningham. And this is something that unfortunately he does have a bit of a tendency to do. He ends up taking a large portion of mid-range shots, and that is going to make his life harder. Now, the reason I think of this as a settle is for this. Where I've stopped this video, you can see the Kyle Lowry here, who had the responsibility for Cade most of the night, has kind of stumbled. What you will see guys like Luka Doncic, some of these bigger ball handlers that Cade Cunningham is in the ballpark of in terms of size and in terms of athleticism and in terms of patience and deceleration as well. What you will see them do is they will try to cut off this angle here, right? They will drive here as opposed to looping here. And what you do is by cutting off the angle, crossing over, getting low, getting that guy in jail, getting him on your hip. And we'll see this later throughout this video. The Cade actually does this multiple times throughout this game. You end up forcing other defenders to come up and help. So in this case, you would be forcing maybe Jimmy Butler to slide over. You might be forcing Bam Adebayo to step up even further from his drop. And if he does that, it's going to open up something. If one of these guys are forced to help more, it's going to open up something. Maybe it's Jalen Duren rolling to the rim. Maybe it's this kick out here to, I believe that is Asar Thompson. We'll talk about that later on what a kick out could be to Asar. Instead, he rounds it off. And because he rounds it off, let me get rid of these lines here. He puts himself in a position where he doesn't know if Jimmy Butler is stunting or if he's actually digging. And as you will see throughout the course of this game, Miami does both. Miami played really well defensively in this game, in my opinion, forcing Cade into tougher positions. Ultimately, this is a stunt. So he's going to come this way and then go back out. I would love to see Cade here cut off that angle, or once he sees Jimmy start to retreat back toward Asar, he sees Jimmy go back this way. I would love to see Cade again drive a little bit further, maybe drive a little bit this way, force his hip into Kyle Lowry here, and continue to pressure that defense, continue to pressure the paint. In general, I think Cade is a basketball savant and a genius, as we will talk about throughout this video. I think this is one place where he stands for real improvement. And there are places for improvement everywhere for Cade Cunningham, obviously. He's a young player in his third season. This is one place, this decision to settle for this jumper here. I think he makes life a little bit harder for himself and his teammates sometimes by settling. He ends up getting it back, canning a three, makes it all right. And they end up getting more points than they would have, even if he would have been able to draw Bam Adebayo up here a little bit further, forcing a lob. Maybe he's able to bring Bam up this way a little bit. He's able to throw this lob up over the top. I know that Kevin Love is tagging here. Another option here, by the way, is to, as he goes up for the shot, shoot out that cross corner kick out to Isaiah Stewart. But as we'll see throughout this video, spacing in general is a concern for the Detroit Pistons. This is a small thing that I think he does a little bit too often, and it ends up hindering his and his team's efficiency. This shot here, side view contest from Kyle Lowry. I know it's in rhythm. I would say that's probably a 45% shot, and that's like a positive percentage there. It's maybe 40 to 45%. So you're talking about somewhere in the ballpark of that being a 0.8 to 0.9 point per possession shot. And in my opinion, as you can see here, 16 seconds left on the shot clock, I think the Pistons can probably do better than that shot at that point. Again, I'm going to have very few critiques about Cade Cunningham in this video. This is the one that I would say at times can be a bit frustrating. Anyway, it comes back, drills a three. Let's move on to the next one. So this one, Killian Hayes brings the ball up, hits Cade on the wing, and Cade takes a side ball screen. This is one where we're going to see the first impression of what Detroit's decision to start Killian Hayes, Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, and Jalen Duren next to Cade Cunningham brought early on in this game. Those five, so Cade with those four players, had a 93 offensive rating in this game. You can point to turnovers. This group turned the ball over a lot, especially early in the game. In my opinion, even more than the turnovers, you can point to the fact that the Miami Heat did not have any respect for what Killian Hayes, Asar Thompson, and frankly, even Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah can shoot a little bit, but the Heat were more than comfortable just leaving him open. And you will see throughout the course of this video, as I pause it at times, they're just collapsing the paint every time Cade gets a touch. So here, what you're going to see here, Cade's going to get this. I want you to pay special attention here to Tyler Hero, who is guarding Killian Hayes. Look at how far into the paint here Tyler Hero is. Tyler Hero's foot is basically at the nail, while he is one pass away from a potentially wide open three to Killian Hayes. The Heat did not care if Killian Hayes was open. I get it that Killian Hayes brings quite a bit defensively onto the court, and I thought he played pretty well defensively in this game. And I'm not saying Killian Hayes can't play a role on the Detroit Pistons moving forward. If you play him next to Cade Cunningham, though, this is the kind of spacing at the foul line area that you're going to run into. It's going to be very difficult for Cade to be able to drive and continue his drive and get any paint touches and really collapse that defense in any way, shape, or form. You could say they're already collapsed, but I would argue that this is more within scheme here for what Miami is trying to do. because Tyler Hero is so comfortable with his foot at the nail, basically, and just getting a late contest on a potential Killian Hayes 3, there's no room for Cade to be able to drive and get a high level shot. Killian Hayes gets this shot off, misses it. Killian Hayes is a career, probably 30% 3-point shooter. That's a shot that the Miami Heat are going to be great with, as opposed to Cade Cunningham coming off of any sort of action. So here again, Cade gets the ball from Killian Hayes. Kyle Lowry guarding Cade Cunningham here. We're going to get a side ball screen from Jalen Duren. And again, you're going to note here, as he takes this side ball screen, the Miami Heat's defensive principles in this game, especially, where we're going to collapse here. We're going to play essentially drop here with Bam Adebayo, but we're going to make sure and make Cade feel his presence at first, given how close he is already. We are helping same side here with Kevin Love so that Cade can't drive through this gap. We are helping, although you will see that this ends up being Jimmy Butler baiting Cade Cunningham into making this pass. And then even Tyler Hero is helping in here. There is just no space to do anything here. And Cade recognizes it for what it's worth. Cade sees it. He sees that he has this potential kick out. The problem is that Jimmy Butler is a defensive genius. So Jimmy Butler, you can see he's literally looking at Cade's eyes right here. He sees where Cade's trying to go. He's baiting him the whole time into making that cross corner kick out, knowing all of the help that he's going to have right here with all of these 1, 2, 3, 4 Heat players already in the paint, with Kevin Love, 4 players in the paint, Kevin Love digging and kind of swatting at the ball potentially if Cade tries to go downhill through this gap, which isn't really there. So Jimmy Butler's just baiting the whole way, and Cade falls for it. But part of why Cade falls for it is because the Heat don't really respect Isaiah Stewart as a shooter on this same side. And they don't really respect Killian Hayes out here as a shooter as well. So this is going to be kind of a running theme throughout this video, unfortunately. Ends up being a turnover. But now we're going to start to get into the good stuff from Cade. So this one here is going to be a fun little Spain action. So as you can see, Killian Hayes going to come off of this screen here. Jalen Duren is setting the screen here and then rolling. Cade is coming up to screen here on the back and then flashing up to the top. The goal here is hopefully to create a little bit of confusion between Bam and Kyle Lowry, or to get Jalen Duren an open lane and runway to the basket on that side. Or you could even end up in a circumstance where it's a wide open shot for Isaiah Stewart on the backside. Spain's a really tough guard for most teams. Here, the way they handle it is the way most teams handle it. They have the defender on the backside in the Spain action, which in this case is Kyle Lowry, step up as if he is the main screen defender. Cade setting his screen here. We're going to get a Duren roll. And they essentially get the ball out of Killian's hands with what ends up being like a blitz kind of action. Hero recovers, but the good news here is that out of that Spain action, you have wrought Tyler Hero onto Cade Cunningham, which is a matchup that the Detroit Pistons absolutely want. That is a mismatch for the Detroit Pistons. All due respect to Tyler Hero. That is one of the great potential outcomes of this set. So here, you're going to get Cade able to get downhill, get all the way to the rim, and finish. It's just really, really sharp stuff here from the Pistons. I would run more of this stuff personally. I think that this is a great set for the Pistons to be able to potentially get Cade open and get Cade in advantageous situations. Again, you will notice here with Hero being the primary defender, Cade is willing to initiate contact with that left shoulder and finish. And then also because Jalen Duren is over here and is as lethal a lob threat as he is, you have to pay attention to him. That's why Bam is a little bit late rotating over. Kevin Love, God love him, one of my favorite players of the last decade probably. He's not high pointing a Jalen Duren lob. It's just not happening. So I love this set. I love this action. I think it's really sharp from the Detroit Pistons. It results in a beautiful layup for Cade Cunningham. Next up, run that back real quick. As you're going to see throughout a lot of this video, the way they were getting Cade the ball was often starting him off the ball, setting a screen, and having him try and get loose up to the top. So here, he's being guarded by Caleb Martin. And this is just beautiful screen manipulation here by Cade. Marvin Bagley's a guy I would imagine he doesn't have a ton of experience, like year over year experience with necessarily, if only because they just recently acquired him, a couple years ago. And Cade was hurt last year. But watch the way that Cade comes off of this screen. He's going to come off of it a little bit flat as opposed to coming off of it and trying to get downhill into Bam. And because Miami is in drop here with Bam backpedaling, you're going to see that Cade is going to feel comfortable stopping on a dime here because they went under the screen here. Notice with Caleb, he's going to go here. He's going to go under the screen, not over the top. If he goes over the top and tries to chase Cade over the top, I would imagine that this operates very differently and Cade makes a different decision. But because he goes under, he strings it out for a second, and then he's going to have Bagley come back and set another screen. I think you can even see him kind of calling for it here with that offhand. He's communicating to Bagley to come back. So Bagley comes back. They try and go under again, and Cade gets to a spot at the elbow. Again, they go under the screen. It's very clear that they were feeling good about going under Cade Cunningham screens. If he's at the 3-point line, his percentages say that that's not a terrible idea. You make them. I think that Cade can make those shots personally. I think he went, I know at one point he was 3 for 5 in that game from 3, but I really like trying to go over the top of this one personally and getting a rear view contest once the screen is being set this close to the basket. I think it's really, really hard if you're going to go under that screen in drop to be able to get in front of Cade for a shot there and to be able to contest him. So next up here, this is going to be a post up for Isaiah Stewart. Going to result in a kick out to Cade. And I grabbed this one just again to showcase how little respect the Miami Heat have generally for the shooters. And this one here, I just want you to watch Jimmy Butler actually. So Cade's up here. Ball's here with Isaiah Stewart. Right now, it looks like we've got Isaiah Stewart, Marvin Bagley, Asar Thompson, and Killian Hayes out there with Cade Cunningham. Again, all due respect to Isaiah Stewart, not a shooter that the Miami Heat are worried about in sight on the court right now for the Detroit Pistons. And the result of that is even on this kick out, you can see the way that Jimmy is just waiting. Jimmy has his back turned fully to Asar Thompson here. He is just not worried about Asar. He is going to full scale double. He is full scale doubling off of Asar here, thinking that Cade is eventually going to go up for this mid-range shot. Now, how do you counter this? If I was Detroit, what I would say is if teams play Asar like this more going forward, Asar needs to be 45 cutting. The minute that he sees Jimmy's back turn, which is going to happen right there about, I would like to see Asar 45 cut at that point and create a little bit more pressure on the defense. And then you have Killian come up and replace here. But again, it's hard to tell the Pistons to have somebody 45 cut when you already have Killian Hayes and Marvin Bagley, two non-shooters right here. And Bagley ain't moving. Bagley needs to be in the dunker spot there because that's really where he's effective. So again, the entire offense is just making life very difficult for Cade Cunningham. And he's still operating in spite of that. He drills that shot, even with the late side contest and the effective contest from Caleb Martin. And, you know, you might be saying, look, there's 4.5 seconds left on the shot clock. If Asar Thompson starts his 45 cut now, or starts it even a second, like starts it there once he sees Jimmy's back turned, probably 5.5 seconds left on the shot clock. That is more than enough time for him to effectively get there. Asar's a rookie. He's young. And honestly, like within the scheme, given the spacing, it's kind of hard for me to even say that he necessarily should be 45 cutting, but in a normal setting where you have shooting around, and instead of Killian Hayes, maybe you have Alec Burks out there, as we'll discuss as an adjustment throughout the course of this game. Maybe that works. Okay, here. Marvin Bagley screen. Cade comes around it. And that's unfortunately an air ball. I just love the way that Cade is going to operate here. Notice earlier. So I want you to see that I'm assuming they're treating this as a side ball screen. And Caleb is going to fight over the top as opposed to going under the screen, which we mentioned earlier. Bam, again, playing, I don't know, you want to call this a catch drop, maybe? Maybe we'll call it a little bit higher of a drop than what he'd been playing. He stays here. And I love what Cade recognizes. He's patient. He stops here. Again, notice that I believe that's Kyle Lowry up there. All the way here, trying to cut off this potential driving angle. You have Kevin Love coming in here, trying to cut off this potential driving angle. And then you have Bam square in front with his chest, and Bam's one of the best defenders in the league. Again, no concern for that shooter. No concern for that shooter. That's Jaden Ivey, I believe, in the corner. I love how he cuts off the angle for Caleb. He sees Cade he has his eye turned here, and then he turns his head a little bit there. And I think his peripheral vision, he sees that Kyle Lowry is that high. I think that's Kyle. And he hits this same side kick out. Now, imagine if this was Alec Burks. Imagine if this was Joe Harris, Monte Morris, Bojan Bogdanovic. I get it. Those two last guys are out right now. Pistons can't do anything about that. This is why floor spacing is so important. This is the exact circumstance of why you need to have real floor spacing on the court in today's NBA, because otherwise teams like the Heat will just collapse against you and force you into really tough spots. The Cade Cunningham had 30 points and 9 assists in this game and was as good as he was is crazy to me. He was unbelievable, I thought, in this debut game. So here again, typical set to come on up, screen from Asar. Cade to come up and get the ball. Jalen Duren's going to come up, set a little screen there, on ball, middle of the court. And now you've got Thomas Bryant out here. And on top of it, you have Duncan Robinson as the low man. This is with 8:20 left in the second quarter. Notice that you have Alec Burks on the court as well. You have a shooter now finally. And I think the moment that Cade recognizes that this is going to be there for this little pocket pass is right here. You can literally see him looking at Duncan Robinson being the low man as the corner player filters through the play. I love what Detroit did, having the corner man cut baseline and filter through the play, because what that does is it can do one of two things. If Alec Burks lifts here, and if this is a real shooter, you create a momentary confusion here where the Heat backside defenders have to decide who is the low man. Is it Caleb Martin as Killian Hayes potentially drifts to the corner? Is it Duncan Robinson, whose man is filtering through to the other corner? If there's no low man there, because Duncan decides to follow this way, let's say, then I mean Caleb would have to come down, would potentially open a cross-court kick out to Killian Hayes. If Duncan stays here, if you have shooters on this side of the court and Alec Burks comes up here, and I think that's Isaiah Stewart filtering to the corner, you now have this defender for the Miami Heat, who I believe is Tyler Hero, guarding 1-on-2. And again, if those are two real shooters that they feel like they have to guard, that should result in an open three-pointer once Tyler makes his decision. And that's a same side kick out for Cade to make his decision on. It's an easy pass for him. Here, instead, he recognizes that Duncan's going to stay there and that Caleb is not going to really tag Jalen Duren here. So he just decides that he likes this matchup. He likes Jalen Duren attacking into a paint where the only person is Duncan Robinson. And he feels like he can string along Thomas Bryant enough. Look how close Thomas Bryant's feet are to one another, to where that's going to be an open lane and it's going to result in Jalen Duren being able to score. Just simple, smart stuff from Cade Cunningham, I thought. Really, really simple stuff. This one here, again, I just want to point out, look at how he cuts off the angle. I mentioned it the first time in the first clip that we went through. Side ball screen. Defender, that might be Drew Smith, fights over the top here. And he's just going to cut off the angle. He's going to drive here and then here. And as he does that, he's going to drag defenders with him. And just look at Miami's defenders again. We've got one behind Cade because he's in jail. And literally 1, 2, 3, 4. All of them literally have their feet in the paint. So what does he do? Hits the kick out to a good shooter, Alec Burks. That's one that Alec Burks is going to make, I'd say 50% plus. That's probably a 1.5 point per possession shot. He just missed it. Burks in general, like I think he was a +9 in this game. Like he was really valuable in a game that they lost by 1. Really good. Like just having his presence out there was valuable. This one here, Cade going to wait for Isaiah Stewart to come through. And then I think he's going to come around this way to get the inbounds. He doesn't get the inbounds, but he comes around that way. And this is just when Cade started to get like absolutely flames coming out of his hands. But here, I just want to note again, this time, Duncan Robinson again here. Bam here. Kyle trailing here. That's 3 defenders for Cade. Look at what Star Thompson does. Look at that. Look at Asar here. This is what I've wanted. This is what I called for on that last one. As soon as he sees Duncan step here, he 45 cuts and goes. The way that those 45 cuts put pressure on defenses are twofold. It essentially makes it so that this man here, that's a terrible circle, is responsible for guarding him at the basket or him in the corner. And again, if you have a real shooter in the corner, that's a really hard ask. And Cade, I think, is smart enough to process that. Here, he just ends up shooting the mid-range jumper. I'd probably prefer him to hit one of those passes, but when Cade is hot, you're not going to like complain, in my opinion, on him drilling a mid-range jumper. But again, this is where the spacing matters. There's just all 4 of the 5 Detroit Pistons here are inside the 3-point line. It's hard to live like that. It's really hard to live like that in today's NBA. Next up, he's getting guarded now by Jimmy Butler. And now they're switching. This is the second quarter. They've switched Bam Adebayo onto Cade. Cade just drills this, but this is where we start to get adjustments to what Cade is presenting to the Pistons or to the Heat. So he's being guarded now by Jimmy instead of Kyle Lowry. So that's 1. And then 2, Bam's going to switch this. It's a reasonably spaced lineup because Alec Burks is out there now. And look, sometimes Cade is just going to be able to drill this. It's very clear that Miami went into this game with a strategy of we're going to make Cade shoot threes. And if he drills them, great. Cool. Sounds good. This one here, 47 seconds left in the second quarter. Cade's going to come around. I love how he just forces Tyler Hero onto his hip here. He's going to come around. Duren, I love this. Duren initially starts this way with Cade coming around, and then Cade's going to stop on a dime, come back around this way. Duren's going to come back around this way for the screen again. I will say, again, from a spacing perspective, if you're going to run this kind of flipped ball screen action, I'm not totally sure why Alec Burks is so close there. Was he involved in some sort of action? So he comes through the play. It's almost like you're hoping that this first screen comes out. I mean, I don't know why Burks isn't just filtering to the corner here. Instead, Burks comes up. That may have been a mistake. Oh no. No, it's like a Chicago action. They're basically setting up for Cade. That's why. So they're setting up a Chicago action for Cade to come this way and come here. But then they're having it. Okay, so this doesn't really make sense, even really from a spacing perspective as an action. So your goal here is to basically run this like zoom Chicago action where you try and get Cade loose from his man, and then you have him come around a screening action. The goal there, the reason you're doing this is to try and get him downhill going this way. Does Miami do something to like stop that? I guess Tyler does a pretty good job getting through that initial screen here from Duren. That's kind of a lazy screen from Duren. So that's why it doesn't work. But even then, man, Cade comes off that, not really looking to get downhill. He looks like he's kind of stopping here. And then Burks has to filter to the corner, which eventually he does, but it's just a little bit crowded in this space coming off of it. I don't know. I don't love the spacing of this set. It's not great, in my opinion. Cade ends up just kind of using his strength. Again, like the hero matchup is one that you want. That's probably, I guess that might be a reason to do this. Try and get hero matched up onto Cade, maybe, is what you're hoping by running this. I'll accept that maybe as a reason. It's just very tight. Typically, zoom actions, you're going to start with like a screener like here or maybe even here, and then the man's going to come up here and take a dribble handoff. That's just a very tight ATO action off of it. I love how Cade, again, uses his body, gets Tyler Hero in jail, finds his way into a mid-range shot. Doesn't go in, but, you know, again, you'd love to have a guy in this corner that's a genuine shooter so that Cade could shoot that ball to the corner. Also, you'd probably just prefer, in my opinion, Cade to make like a little wraparound pass here to Isaiah Stewart. It's probably not the best decision here. I think this is another example probably of Cade settling, but it's kind of a design-based settle where it's hard for me to blame Cade when you have three guys in this little space here to start the set like that. And then you're reversing angles. Yeah, it doesn't really work for me. It's not for me. Okay, next up, we're going to run a loop-de-loop here with Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren. And this is one where, for me, we saw it on the last possession, and we're going to see it again. The only reason you really run this action, in my opinion, where the action here is going to be, you know, you're looping around here, someone sets a screen, you're looping around here, someone sets a screen, and then goes up to set a screen for Cade. The reason you're running that action is to try and force a switch. You're trying to force a moment where you can get Kevin Love matched up onto Duren, and then Kevin Love as the big defender coming out here trying to defend this ball screen. But the way that Jalen Duren sets this screen is, in my opinion, not quite good enough. So he just kind of stops there. There's not really any like force to it. It's pretty easy for Kevin Love just to kind of wrap over the top of. And there's just not really there's nothing really there for me on it, right? It's like he's just going to stop. And it's Isaiah Stewart too. Like he's not really running like all that hard through this. You would like to see them, you know, try and play with a little bit of force on that to try and force the switch. If you like run off of this action, if you're Isaiah Stewart, you come off of this, and then you shoot that way to the corner, which is where he's going, you might force Bam to follow. You might force a peel switch here. But, and again, like Jalen Duren doesn't set a good screen. It's just kind of an easy action here. It just results in a bit of a settle. Cade, where he ends up getting like a contested three against Bam, with Bam playing up high. Just little details for the Pistons sometimes that will drive me a little bit up a wall. This one here, they do get finally Kevin Love up in action. They just have Marvin Bagley on the court here being guarded by Kevin Love. So Bagley comes up, sets a screen, and what do? They decide to put 2 on the ball here. And then they reverse it. They reset out of it. Kevin Love gets back. And again, Cade is trying to find an answer here. He gets 2 on the ball. One of your answers could be to, as you have 2 on the ball here, throw this ball to Marvin Bagley in the short roll area. Marvin should probably be maybe a step deeper, be like here as opposed to there. I think it'd be a little bit easier to make that pass because Caleb Martin wouldn't be quite as close at that point. But you could throw it now. And you could try and now you can't throw it. It's a little too late because Kevin's backing up and getting back into space. And now Cade is just going to try and create on his own again. He gets the spin. And again, Bam Adebayo's here. We've got Kyle Lowry in the paint. Just look at how many dudes we have for the Miami Heat. We have a same side help from Jimmy Butler here. Let's rewind this just a tick, right? So we're going to have a same side help from Jimmy, where he's here. That's 1. Caleb Martin, 2. Kevin Love, 3. We've got Bam, foot in the paint, 4. Kyle Lowry, foot in the paint, 5. So that's 5 guys where either their feet are in the paint or they're guarding Cade Cunningham. This is why spacing matters, guys. This is why spacing matters. Eventually, Kyle is going to help down even further into the paint. Same side kick out here, basically, to Killian Hayes. And that just has to be a make. Certainly can't be an air ball. Got to be something, though. Next, Cade Cunningham comes up. And now we're just blitzing. Now we're just straight blitzing at this point. Again, Killian Hayes, open 3. Hits a lot of the rim there, but none of the net. Yeah, just straight blitzing here. And why do you feel like you can blitz? Because Marvin Bagley is the roller, and Marvin Bagley is not really a great passer, unfortunately. So you feel like you can blitz with these 2 on the ball. You can have Jimmy Butler step up here because Asar Thompson, he's a different color. Asar Thompson is in the corner there. And if Asar is going to shoot a 3, you're not that worried. Now, maybe what you could do is, again, back cut with Asar, maybe have Isaiah clear that way a little bit. But again, because Isaiah is trying to seal and is more of a post player as opposed to a 3-point shooter, the spacing is just not great here. And it's easy. The fact that there are not shooters on the court, it is easy for Miami to guard this and get the ball out of Cade Cunningham's hands. He makes the right pass to Killian Hayes, but Detroit can't hurt them. And this is still a double-digit game. So now 15-point game, early 4th quarter. Like this little play. This is just an example of what Jalen Duren can do with the ball in his hands. I think he's kind of a creative guy with the ball in his hands sometimes. I think he does a pretty good job of just creating that little bit of separation for Cade. So if I'm going to call out Duren screening in a couple of places, I want to call out, I think this is a nice little set. Again, Caleb Martin goes under the screen here. It's worth noting because he's not as worried about Cade taking threes. But I like how deep Duren gets there, setting his screen. I know he doesn't necessarily make contact on the screen, but because he's so deep and because he recognizes where Caleb Martin is, he recognizes Caleb Martin is in this area here, and then he's going to have to get around. I like how deep Jalen Duren sets that screen to open up that little bit of space. Again, though, I would like to see Duren actually make some contact on screens occasionally. So this one, they run like a 1-3 at the top, which is nice. And that is just a filthy pass from Cade Cunningham. Just a filthy pass. So what are we looking at here? Running like a 1-3 ball screen at the top here with Alec Burks. Cade's going to come around. He's going to dribble hand off it. Or Killian's going to come around, going to dribble hand off it to Cade. The hope there, I would guess, is to try and get Duncan Robinson here to guard Cade and to switch this action. Killian doesn't really set like any sort of screen here. He just kind of slips it to the corner on the dribble handoff. So you don't get that action. And they decide to play high up on the ball with Thomas Bryant here. Having said that, what makes this play so fun is just look at the pressure that this play by Killian Hayes, where he's going to vacate, and then you're going to have a lift, I believe. You didn't end up having a lift, but you had a screen so that Killian could go up to the wing. Look at the pressure this puts on Duncan Robinson. Duncan can't really fully commit here to Jalen Duren. Because if he does, Cade is just going to be able to reverse pivot and get Alec Burks for a wide open 40% three-point shooter. But because he can't really commit to Duren, Duren is going to be open. This is why Thomas Bryant has high hands. He's trying to make life hard, 7'4" wingspan. Tries to cut off that angle well. This is what vacating this corner does to a defense a lot of the time. It makes it so it's very difficult, as we mentioned in an earlier clip, for that man right there to make a decision on how he wants to attack. I think generally they did a pretty good job of attacking Duncan Robinson when he was on the court in this game, which is something that you should do. And I love that pass over the head, wrap around down to Jalen Duren. Great look from Cade Cunningham. Now 8 minutes left in the fourth. Cade going to get the rebound. Just take the early screen, and then he's going to drill Alec Burks here in the corner for an open three. I just want you to look at the way that Cade, when he's playing up tempo, the way when he has some space to operate, he's just very comfortable manipulating defenders. Look at the way he's going to manipulate this man here, Jaime Jaquez. He's going to look there. You can see Cade is looking at Isaiah Stewart now. He is hoping that by doing so, he's going to force Jaquez to step up and you're going to be able to fire that ball down to the corner as Alec Burks drifts. By doing that little look, you're going to see Hawkes. He's going to get onto his heels. Right? So right there, he's on his heels. And you can see Cade looking there. And once he has him on his heels, he knows that he can fire that ball down to the corner. Just really, really sharp from Cade there. Really, really sharp. Next up, screen here from Jalen Duren. Bam Adebayo back on the court. And this is one where, again, you're just going to see Cade manipulate. He's not really manipulating here. He's just reading. What's going to happen? He's reading. He's reading what Kevin Love is going to do here. Is Kevin Love going to step all the way up? He sees Kevin Love here. This is him using his peripheral vision to see what Kevin Love is doing here. That's what he's trying to figure out. What is Kevin Love going to do? As soon as Kevin steps this far, where he's even beyond the nail with his left foot, this is a wraparound to Isaiah Stewart. And you just hope Isaiah Stewart's going to be able to make that shot. Isaiah is not a terrible shooter, but again, the fact that you have Kevin Love helping this far over, look at how they are shading this many guys toward Cunningham. And part of this is that Cade is tagging as the low man onto Duren here because they have recognized that Detroit is having their low man run through the play and cut baseline to get to the other side. This is an adjustment by the Miami Heat here. Where they recognize they have to use the high man as the tagger. Cade recognizes that and hits Stewart for the open three. That's one you just got to make, right? And it's okay if Stewart didn't make it. You know, sometimes you're going to miss shots, but that's one that you got to make in all hopes. This one here, Cade inbounds the ball. They look for a little back cut here to Cade. And then this one, you're going to get a switch. You're just going to get a switch with Bam. God, is Bam a good defender? I mean, just absolutely sick. But I wanted to showcase this. I like the idea of trying to get Cade the ball in different ways. I like the idea of him throwing the inbounds pass here. And then you're just going to see something that they've been trying to do. They've been trying to use a screener to get Cade loose up here. And instead, you're going to see him kind of shuffle this way and then go. I love it. I love the idea of it. It's never on. It's never on. Bam sniffs it out immediately. I don't really know what Killian saw here, frankly. I think he was predetermined to make this read no matter what, which is a bit disappointing, right? So that is essentially like a little ghost screen there by Duren into a rejected off ball that is a back cut, that is a predetermined back cut by Cade, where he's going to go there. And there is just no circumstance where A, Kyle Lowry gets confused in any way, and B, where Bam falls for it. Bam is just right here. He is literally already peripherally seeing this cut. This is a predetermined look by Killian Hayes, and it's not good enough. Duren gets the loose ball, though. Yeah, this is just Bam. Bam is unbelievable. I think I saw from Cooper Moorhead last night that on Cade switches, he scored over a point per possession on non-Bam defenders, and against Bam, it was like 0.4 or 0.6 or something. But Bam is absolutely unbelievable. He really is one of the best defenders in the NBA, if not the best. This one here, high ball screen that isn't really a screen by Duren. Again, I can't tell if this was a choice by Duran. It's very clear that Cade is calling something out here. I can't quite tell what he's calling out. But with Cade already having the matchup he wants in Hero, I'm a little bit surprised that he doesn't just go. This ends up being like, again, I just don't know. I know Jalen Duren put up a lot of numbers last night. Like he had, I think 17 points, 14 rebounds. He had some blocks, but this did not feel his presence on the court all that often, unfortunately. And this is a good example. It's like, is this a step up screen? Is it a like high ball screen where they're trying to get him loose way at the logo? It just ends up being kind of a nothing screen to me. And yeah, you could say like a nothing screen is fine there because it leaves Hero on Cade, but if that's what you want, then just like back Duren off. Ends up setting the second screen here. That is a good screen by Duren. I will give him credit for that. But yeah, I just don't not totally sure what's the move there. I will also note here on some of these late missed mid-range shots by Cade. Cade did mention after the game that he felt like he didn't quite have his conditioning back yet, his game conditioning. So that's worth watching in the following games here. Once Cade gets his legs back, gets his game shape back, after a long, long layoff of regular season games, can he knock down those mid-range shots late into games? If he can, Detroit has a genuine closer. I think he's probably going to be a closer regardless, but yeah. This one here, great drive to the rim. Love the way he goes through Bam's chest. This is almost kind of a double drag in semi-transition here with 17 left on the shot clock. I have no idea what that screen was from Alec Burks. Like, I don't know if you're going to try and set even like a ghost screen, set it lower here, maybe like try and be an impediment for Jimmy Butler as he guards. They just like switch it anyway, which is fine. But yeah, I'm just not totally sure what that rep was. Kyle Lowry going to come up. They're going to switch. And this is, I think, going to result in essentially a peel switch where Kyle ends up realizing, I think Kyle actually was genuinely trying to fight over the top of this. This is not a switch. This is him trying to fight over the top. And then Bam is playing more at the level here, kind of a catch drop as opposed to a full drop. And Cade feels like he can get downhill against it. And he does. It's a bit of a, like I said, it's a bit of a strange drop there from Bam. It's like nowhere. It's not a drop. He ends up, I think Cade recognizes that his center of balance is a little bit off here. Like Bam is typically like unbelievable with this stuff. I mean, his legs are like this. His body is like leaned way forward. That's not a typical Bam Adebayo rep. But Cade gets all the way to the rim, finishes on him. This one here, 2:30 left. This one is just a sharp drop. Again, Cade mentioned that he lost his legs at a certain point here, which I would imagine is why he ends up missing a few of these mid-range jumpers late. Again, I would love to see, would love to see at some point some contact on a screen from Jalen Duren. Would really love it. This was one where you very well could have made contact and he didn't. Ends up getting into a drop. Beautiful decel there. You can see, just look at how much space he creates on the deceleration. there. That's a decent look. And again, like I said, Cade said he lost his legs last night at a certain point. What can you do? And again, I will note, like, if I'm going to keep calling out the screening from Jalen Duren, Jalen Duren works his butt off and gets that offensive rebound there. Like, if we're going to call it the bad, we're going to call it the good too. I thought Jalen did a really good job on the offensive glass last night. I just wish his screening was a little bit better. This one is just a switch. And this is Bam Adebayo on Cade Cunningham. He gets an angle on him, and Bam just erases it. Just absolutely erases it, because that's what Bam does. Bam is unbelievable defensively. This is just absolutely sick. He's going to do this to guys that are better than Cade Cunningham right now too at some point this year. This is just really, really tough. Really, really, really tough to be one-on-one on an island with Bam Adebayo. He is sick defensively. Slides in front. Great play by Jimmy Butler to keep the ball in bounds. That was with a minute left. Again, this ends up being the final score, 103-102. Detroit had a lot of chances to win this game. This one, I don't know. I don't know what you're running here. So this is going to be, in my opinion, this looks like a play where you're having a little wrap pin kind of play there. Almost by Alec Burks, where he's coming up. And almost trying to set a screen for Cade's guy. Cade is coming and then eventually going to set a screen here for Burks's guy. And Burks is going to filter to the corner there. I'm wondering if the ball is supposed to go to Burks here. I'm not 100% sure what this play is, because this is just Joe Harris going to the corner. Again, this is like here. Burks, ran like a little wrap pin here and then out. Cade running this little screen out here almost, it seems like, to try and get Burks loose. And then Jalen Duren is just kind of at the top of the key. It looks like maybe trying to inch his way in for an offensive rebound. This is what I'm reading here. There just kind of isn't a lot going on with this set. Like, it's almost like a ghost. It's not even like a wrap pin. It's like a ghost action there by Burks, where he's just kind of coming up here and then just like going that way. And I don't know what the read is if you're not going to throw this ball, because he has some separation. It looks like Killian's first look, at least, is to Joe Harris in the corner, but you're not actually trying to get Joe Harris loose. You're just running him. It's almost like you're clearing him to the corner in order to get Burks free out wide. Killian ends up just kind of like, I guess maybe he gets a look at Burks there and it's a turn down maybe. And then you have Duren coming over here almost to like set a screen for Cade, but not really. I just don't know what that set is. And it results in a very deep Cade Cunningham 3. I am guessing here. This is a guess. You'd have to ask Detroit. I don't know. I'm purely guessing. My guess is that you're trying to get the ball to Alec Burks here. It could be you're trying to get it to him from Killian. It could be that you're trying to get it to him on this look here by Cade. My guess is that this is a play for Burks because otherwise I don't know what the set is. And Cade just missed at the end. I honestly don't even know if he got the shot off because if you look at it here, I mean, the red light is on and that's going to be tight. I don't know if the ball's still in his hands or not. To me, that's very blurry. It looks like you're going to need like incredible cameras to be able to tell if that ball is still in his hand or not. Red light's on though. Light is, we're at 0.00 there, as you can see on the clock. Yeah, I don't know, man. Not a great set, not for me. But in total, overall, loved what we saw from Cade Cunningham. Didn't love what we saw from the Pistons in general. I thought this was a game that they unequivocally should have won, and I think that they will be disappointed to have not won. I do not think the Miami Heat played well in this game. I think the Heat would probably tell you themselves. They probably did not play as well as they wanted to in this game. Cade Cunningham was unbelievable. He was incredible. I don't know how he ended up putting up 30 and 9 in a game that was like this, where there was no space on the court. Miami was collapsing every single time he touched the ball. This is an incredible performance from Cade Cunningham, in my opinion. Like, absolutely incredible. That goes to show what his ceiling is. He can be a genuinely great player. They are selling out everything to stop him, and they still couldn't stop him in this game. This, to me, says a whole lot that we should expect a lot of Cade Cunningham. Now, it's one game, and we don't want to overreact to one game. But this is what the Pistons were missing last year. They were missing somebody like this. For them to now have Cade Cunningham, really important and a really good sign for them moving forward. Thank you all for watching. If you're still here, go hit the subscribe on the YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments who you want me to do next. At some point, I'm going to do Nikola Topic from over in Mega, a potential top 20 pick in this upcoming 2024 NBA draft. But let me know if there are any NBA players you want me to do next. I was thinking about doing maybe the ways that the Bucks are using Damian Lillard early on at some point in the next week. Anything beyond that, please let me know. I will take suggestions. I will take comments, anything you guys want. So keep it locked here. Until next time, we'll talk soon.